Are all doing well. And I want to share another devotion with you from the book of Ecclesiastes. We have the preacher, he's called himself here in this book, Solomon, the wise man. And Ecclesiastes chapter 7, I think you're going to find these two verses, especially 9 and 10, to be very, very timely. The Bible says this in verse 9, "Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry." Why? "For anger resteth in the bosom of fools." Ladies and gentlemen, anger is seldom helpful, right? It just doesn't help a situation, okay? And we need to be very careful about anger. And there's so much anger today, right? People are angry about the country. They're angry about the condition. They're angry about everything, the economy, prices. But you know, anger is seldom helpful. But this really leads us to the very next verse. Verse 10, "Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these?" Sound familiar? Why was it so much better yesterday? That's what it said. "For thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this." So he said, don't say that it was so much better before. He said, that's not a wise statement. It's essentially this. If you have a biblical worldview, this much you know. The world has been in trouble since Adam and Eve fell in the Garden of Eden. The reason for trouble is the sinful nature of man. Here's an old saying: the good old days are a combination of a bad memory and a good imagination, right? It's a combination of a bad memory and a good imagination. Now, but I know some of you folks, the good folks of Grace Baptist Church, you're digging in right now and you're saying, no, Pastor, listen. It was better. Look, I know what you're saying. I've lived long enough. I know what you're saying. But he's telling us here, don't have this attitude. And it is true. We tend to look back through rose-colored glasses. It's the fact. You can listen to somebody talk about their years in high school, and you listen to them talk, and you think, wow, they really loved high school. Well, they hated it, okay? It's just looking back. You know, looking back, it was just, wow, that was such a great time. It was such a great time. And some people, they talk about their teenage years with you know, such you know, nostalgia. And for some people, the truth is they really struggled. It was a battle getting through their teenage years for some. Again, the point that we tend to look back and see things as better than they were. We need to be careful with this type of an attitude. Humanity's sinful nature is always going to guarantee that there'll be difficult times. Now, and even if yesterday was something grand, it's gone. It's gone. A Victorian essayist wrote this: "While you are dreaming of the future or regretting the past, the present, which is all you have, slips from you and is gone." One of the things I think people regret most are always those things attached to their children. They just have certain regrets, and they wish they did something different, and they you know, on and on and on it goes. And you know, and every parent who's raised kids, they get that. We right? I'm part of that group. I understand that. But looking back with such regret can be dangerous. In fact, I want to read something that I wrote. "Looking back in crippling regret will rob you of present opportunities and provide tomorrow's fodder for regret." Looking back in a crippling regret is going to ruin today. And it'll become the fodder for tomorrow's regret. You'll literally get yourself into a vicious cycle. He then says this in Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse number 12, "For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it." Yes, wisdom. And then the last verse, "Consider the work of God," verse 13, "For who can make that straight which he hath made crooked?" If something's crooked, you generally cannot make it straight. And if God has determined that something is crooked, excuse me, you will never be able to make it straight. Why is this so timely for today? Because we have in our country, we're dealing with, in fact, our world, not just our country, we're dealing with this idea of fantasy. This idea of fantasy. If God has said something sinful, it doesn't matter how many agencies, how many governments, how many churches, religions, denominations declare that it's straight. If God said it's crooked, it's crooked. And it's not going to be straight. You can't make it right if God has declared that it is wrong. So let's live in reality. Let's calm down here a little bit. Anger is not the answer, right? Anger is not our friend. And also looking back and thinking that things were so much better, that can only rob us of the joys we could have today. Let's live today. Let's enjoy what God has for us today, and let's trust Him, and let's trust His word and not the word of man. Thank you, and God bless you.